Today I wanted to make a definitive video where I go through from scratch showing you guys how to put Sveltekit and Supabase together to build a production ready app. We're going to go over the local dev experience, which is admittedly a little tricky on Supabase's side. I think that their documentation does need a little work in this area, but otherwise the actual experience once you get it working is beyond phenomenal and is really something worth using. Now, before we get started, there are a few prerequisites that you'll need to have installed in order to get all this working. So first and foremost, you need to have Docker Desktop installed as well as the Supabase CLI. You can get both of those. They're linked down below. The Supabase documentation is great on those. Obviously, you need to have Node installed, and actually, we're going to be using Bun for this. I just prefer Bun over Node. It is much faster locally. It works really well, and I think I migrated like all my projects except for the giant T3 Turbo mono repo I have to work with. Everything else is on Bun at this point. So I'm going to use that for the package manager. Outside of all that stuff, make sure you have your code editor. This is not going to be like a beginner tutorial on like, hey, here's how you use Sveltekit. Here's how you use Supabase, all that stuff. We're really just going to be focusing on how to actually use these together and get a project set up so that you have a nice little template to actually create your app. So with all that yapping out of the way, let's get into the tutorial. So let's start this out by creating our Sveltekit project. I'm going to go ahead and run npm create svelte@latest. I'm going to go ahead and just call this Supabase Sveltekit tutorial. And then I'm going to go ahead down in here. I'm going to say I want a skeleton project. I want TypeScript syntax. Let's add ESLint, prettier. I don't want playwright or Vitest. And then, of course, we're going to try the Svelte Vibe preview. They say it's unstable. They say you shouldn't use it in production. I don't give a shit. I'm using it in production. It works great. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We have our new project here. I'm going to go ahead and cd into Supabase Sveltekit tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and open this up in VS Code. Go ahead and make sure that this is nice and zoomed in for the tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and start by deleting this npm-rc. We don't need that because we're not using npm. Now we're going to start with the Supabase stuff. That's probably the easiest place to start here. So remember, you need to have the Supabase CLI installed. So I'm going to go ahead and run Supabase init. That will go ahead and create the new thing. We're going to say yes. We're not going to be using any of the edge functions here, so we don't have to worry about Dino, but might as well. So now we have our new Supabase directory, and the first thing I want to go ahead and do is get this config.toml set up correctly. Now, this is one of the things that is by far the most confusing about working with Supabase locally, so I want to try and dispel a lot of the issues that I've personally had and I've heard a lot of you guys have. So first and foremost, the API, we really don't have to care about this. The DB, don't have to care about this. Real-time, don't have to care about this. Studio, want to make sure we keep that. In bucket, none of this stuff really matters except for auth. Setting up auth locally is kind of hard to figure out, but once you do, it's really, really simple. So first and foremost, we want to change our site URL over here to localhost 5173. I'm going to do the same thing down here to, actually, I'm going to change this as well. So we're going to do localhost 5173. And we're going to change this as well to localhost 5173 because we're in Sveltekit, not Next.js. So everything else here is good. Everything else is fine. For auth.email, we can leave this be. I personally really hate email authentication. We're not even going to be implementing it here. I don't want your passwords, and any site I personally go to that uses email authentication, I pretty much instantly bounce. So I don't want to waste our time with this. We're going to close that up. But for the auth.external, this is where it gets important. So we're going to leave auth.external.apple blank. We're going to go down here and add in some new stuff. So first and foremost, we want to do auth.external.github. And this is the easiest auth provider to set up and is just a really great example for this. So we're going to first and foremost say enabled equals true. We're going to go ahead and say our client ID is equal to env, and then we're going to go ahead and call this GitHub client ID. Next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to set up our client secret, and we're going to set this to be env GitHub client secret, the autocomplete new. So then the next thing we need to do is set up our redirect URI. Now for our redirect URI, this is where it gets a little tricky. We actually want to set this to http://127.0.0.1:54321/auth/v1/callback. Whenever we redirect from GitHub, we want to redirect actually back to the Supabase local server and let it handle the authentication from there. So this is a tricky piece that is hard to find that like this is what you actually need to put here, but this is the key. We want to put this here for our redirect URI, and then after that, we're good. So now that we've done all this and we have our GitHub set up, we need to fill in the client ID and the client secret. So I'm going to go into my GitHub account here. So I'm going to go over to my profile. I'm going to go into my, it's settings. And then we're going to go down here into my developer settings. We're going to go into OAuth apps. And then I have a ton in here. But I already have one in here that I call Supabase Sveltekit local. All you have to do is create a new OAuth app. I'm just going to use this one. Whenever you create this, you're going to get a client ID here, and then you're going to want to grab your client secret. We'll generate a new one in a second. But the really important piece in here that you need to set is when you're setting the homepage URL, it should just be localhost 5173. Give it whatever description you want. Then the really, really key piece here is that your authorization callback URL needs to be this. So it needs to be this, I'll zoom in on this real quick so you can see it. It's 127.0.0.1:54321/auth/v1/callback. This is really important. So make sure you set your callback to be this, set your homepage URL to be this, go ahead and create your application. Then once you've done that, you want to grab your client ID here. So I'm going to first grab this. We're going to go back to code. I'm going to go ahead in here and I'm going to create a new .env file. I'm going to go ahead and say GitHub client ID is equal to that. Go back over here. Yep. And then I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to generate a new client secret. So now that we've copied our client secret, we want to go ahead and say GitHub client secret. Then we're just going to set that equal to this guy. I'm going to flush all these keys before this goes live, so don't worry about me leaking stuff. So we have our client ID, our client secret, and now our config.toml is all set up. So that is one of the trickiest parts of this, which is now all set up and ready for you, and you can just go ahead and actually run your auth servers. But we're not done setting up yet. The next thing we need to do is the database. Now, Supabase has a really good client-side SDK for interfacing with our databases. You can use stuff like row-level security to go ahead and secure your database and interact with it directly from the client, but I personally really don't like that way of interfacing with my database and working with it. I much prefer to use a normal ORM and use it like a normal database. So we're going to be using Drizzle here. Drizzle is my ORM of choice. I really like Prisma. Prisma has a lot of good stuff to it. But the front loading cost of just getting Prisma set up is such a pain in the ass that I don't want to deal with it. So we're going to use Drizzle. So to get Drizzle set up, I'm actually going to show you guys the documentation and kind of just show you my thought process and how I go through this because I don't have any of this memorized. So we're going to go in here into Drizzle. We're going to go into the documentation. We're going to go into Postgres. We're going to go into Supabase. We're going to start by copying this first line. I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. And then I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to do bun add-d drizzle kit. Add those guys in here. Then once we've done that, I'm actually going to go ahead and set up my drizzle kit file here. So if you go in here to the quick start, I think they have a good example in here. Yeah, they do. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just copy paste this. So this is from the quick start section on drizzle kit. We're going to go back into our project in the root directory here. I'm going to do drizzle.config.ts. I'm going to go ahead and paste this in here. Then we need to go ahead and change where our schema and where our out directories are. So our drizzle is going to live in source, lib, and then we're going to create a new directory in here called db. And then we're going to create a new file called index.ts. And we're going to also create another file called schema.ts. So this is typically how I set up my database. So going back to our little drizzle.config here, I'm going to say my schema is going to be in ./source/lib/db/schema.ts. And then our out directory here, we're going to get a little fancy with this, and we're actually going to generate migrations directly for Supabase. Now, when we're working with Supabase locally, one of the cool things we can do is whenever you start up your local Supabase server, if you have a migrations directory in your Supabase directory, it will automatically apply those migrations to your local database. So we don't have to do like db push or anything like that. We can manage our database there, and we can also use that to deploy our database later on. And we'll include that at the end of the video. I think showing how to take this to prod is really important, so I'm not going to leave that out. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I just pasted a bunch of stuff in here. So the first thing we change is we set our out directory to be ./supabase/migrations. That means we're going to generate all of our migrations into here. Then the next thing we want to go ahead and do is we want to set our database credentials to be localhost 54321, Postgres, Supabase. Now, this is really kind of optional. You really don't need to have this in here, but I like to include it for completeness sake. So now that we've done all of this, we actually have our full Supabase instance ready, but we need to create some data to we need to create a schema to migrate in. So I'm going to go back here into my source directory, into my lib, into my DB, and we're going to start in the schema. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say export const profile table equals PG table. I'm going to call this profile. I'm going to go ahead in here and we're just going to set some basic fields. For this little example app, we're going to have a profile for the user. We're going to update some fields on there using form actions to show you guys how those work. And really, the point of this is in a lot of real apps, I typically find myself having a separate table within my normal database that's like a profile instance because I want to store stuff on there. I want to store user settings. I want to have like a link to all the other tables. I really like having this. So I'm going to go ahead and say ID is equal to UUID. We're going to import that from Postgres core. We're just going to call this ID. We're going to say this is a primary key. We're not going to have it auto set because we want to set that ourselves. This ID is actually going to reference the UUID in the auth table. Well, we can't manually set that, but that's how we'll actually do it. So then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do first name is equal to text. Nope, not that text. We're going to do text from PG core. Just going to say first name. Then we're going to do .not null. I don't like null values if I can avoid them. Also going to have last name. Also going to have email. And yeah, that's good enough for this example. That's really all we need to have. So we have this profile table here and go back to this index.ts. We're going to go back over here to the Drizzle documentation. I'm going to jump back up here to the docs. We're going to go back to Postgres, back to Supabase, and we're going to jump down here to this little index.ts here. I'm just going to copy everything out of this. I'm going to paste it in here. That's not correct. That's not correct. That's not correct. We're going to actually export this database. And within our Drizzle, we also want to import star as schema from /schema. So this will give us nice types for the Drizzle query client, which was a really nice thing that they added recently. Pass in our schema here. And the last thing we need to do is get our connection string. So I'm going to go ahead and just say this is going to be equal to database URL, and we will import this after we've actually run our dev server. Once we've run that, this will be generated as a static type in Sveltekit, and we can import that, but we don't have it yet, so we're just going to wait. So with that now out of the way, let's go ahead back into our package.json and let's create some helper functions in here. I like having these. So the first one we're going to create is going to be db generate. So we're going to go ahead and say drizzlekit generate. So we're going to paste that in here. And then that's really the only one we need. So now that we have this command, I'm going to go ahead back over to my terminal. I'm going to do bun run db generate. Then this will take a second and it will create this new migration. So going back into our project, if we go into Supabase, we go into migrations, we can see we have our first migration here. It's super basic. All we're doing is just creating our profile. And we actually need to add something to this. We're going to do alter table profile enable row level security. So what this will do is this will block off public access from the public HTTP API that Supabase exposes. Again, I don't like the client-side SDK for that stuff. I know some people do, it's just not for me. So we're gonna go ahead, alter the table, enable the row level security, block that off, and we should be good. So I'm gonna go ahead, close this up, and I think with that, we are basically ready to start our server. Okay, so we're gonna run Supabase start and end up actually getting an error here. It's, oh, I forgot. For GitHub, it's not client secret, it's actually secret. So we're gonna go ahead in here, and we're gonna go back to our config.toml. We're gonna go back down here to external GitHub, and we're actually gonna change this to be secret is equal to env.client-secret. There we go. Okay, so now if we go back in here and we do Supabase start, okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, I think my Docker was just fucked up. Finally, when I clear all this out and I do Supabase start, this will go ahead and actually spin up our database. It will use those migrations, apply them locally, apply all of the auth stuff locally, and we should have a nice environment prepped and ready. So give this a moment here. Let it set up our schema, let it go through and do everything. Okay, awesome. So with that out of the way, we now have our local Supabase instance working. If I go ahead in here to our studio URL, pop this up, we go into our table editor, you'll see we've got our nice profile here. We have it's protected by RLS. We have all our stuff working in here. and we're ready to actually make the app. So let's go ahead back down here. Let's go ahead and copy paste this database URL. I'm going to copy this boy here. I'm going to go back into my project. I'm going to go into my .env. I'm going to say database URL is equal to this guy. And now finally, let's go ahead in here and let's do let's do bun run dev. So now I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to go into my database. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to now import this from static private. And then if we go to 5173, we'll get welcome to Sveltekit. And I'm going to go back over here and close this. I'm going to go back into our project here. I'm going to go into roots, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a page.server.ts. We go ahead and say export const load equals async. So this is our server side load function here. You go ahead and say const profiles equals await db, where I import from that libdb .query .profile table .find many. Then we're just going to go ahead and return the profiles. We're going to go on to our page.svelte. We're going to go ahead and add a script tag up here. I'm going to set my lang equal to ts. And finally, I'm going to say const data equals $props to grab our data from the page.server. We're going to do inspect data.profiles. We're going to go back into our terminal. I'm going to open this back up and inspect element, and we should see no profiles. Beautiful. It worked exactly right. So we are all good. Our database is working and connected. So now let's get Supabase set up and running for our Sveltekit app. So this is where it gets a lot easier and where the documentation is helpful, but I still want to go through this in the video and make sure that you guys have a complete video here to actually show you how this works. So I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to go ahead and look up Supabase SSR package setup. Just going to look that up. We're going to create a Supabase client for SSR. I'm going to go into the Sveltekit guide. I'm really glad that they have this, and we're just going to follow it. So I'm going to start up here with my Supabase JS and Supabase SSR. We're going to copy this right here. I'm going to stop my dev server, do bun add these two homies. Then we're going to go back over here to our .env. I do .env, not .env.local. I don't know why. Who cares? So we're going to do these. I'm going to copy this guy here. I'm going to go ahead into our .env. I'm going to go ahead and paste those two in here. Now for our Supabase URL, this, we can go ahead back into our terminal, and if we do Supabase status, we'll get all of this information. So I'm going to start here by copying this API URL. We're going to paste that in here. I'm going to clear this out here. And for our anon key, I'm going to go ahead and set that equal to this guy right here. So we're going to copy him, and I'm going to paste him in here. Now that we've done that, we're going to close up this .env. I'm going to go ahead and do bun run dev so that we get the type safety on our env variables. Then we're just going to keep following it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go down here. I'm going to go into, and we're going to make our hooks.server.ts. So I'm going to start over here. I'm going to copy paste everything from here. I'm going to go into my source directory here. I'm going to create hooks.server.ts. Go ahead and paste that in here, and we're going to get a bunch of type errors because we don't have our types in our app.d.ts, but most of this is actually pretty much correct. So I'm just going to leave that how it is. We're going to go back in here, and we're going to go into our type defs. I'm going to copy everything here. I'm going to go into my app.d.ts. I'm going to actually add to this, so I'm going to paste it up here. Oh wait, no, they do it right. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete everything here. And I'm just going to paste in everything from there. So we'll get our session type, our client type, and our user type, in properly type our locals, and our server should now be working correctly. Beautiful it is. So perfect, this is working just fine. And now we can go back over here. So now we're going to go ahead and create our browser client within our layout.ts. So I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to copy everything from this again. We're going to go into our roots. We're going to add a plus layout.ts, which means that this can run both client side and server side, but really just think of it as client side. So we're going to go ahead and paste this in here. We have this nice is browser check to ensure we're in the right environment. And if we are, we go ahead and create our little browser client in here. Everything is good. We're going to go back over here and also grab this layout.server to add our session to our layout. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste everything from here. So we're going to go back in here, and I'm going to do plus layout.server.ts. Go ahead and paste that in here. And now that'll get rid of our type error in here because we know that we have our data.session. And now we should have all the context we need to actually use Supabase in our app, I believe. Oh yeah, one other thing we can add in here, which I'll go ahead and add this because it's good practice, is we want to have a little listener in here, which whenever we change our auth state, we go ahead and invalidate our authentication and log the user out. So I'm going to go ahead in here. I'm going to copy paste all of this. We're going to go ahead and add a plus layout.svelte. We're going to paste all this in here, and I'm actually going to change a couple things. So first and foremost, I'm going to add in this lang equals ts. Now, we're going to do this in runes mode. I don't want to leave you guys in the old Svelte 4 thing. We're going to do this in runes mode because that's the new stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and say const data equals $props. We're going to delete this. We are going to go ahead and delete this. And we are going to go ahead and switch this on mount into an effect. So this will now be an effect rune. We're going to delete this. Yeah, we had a little override here where we had data declared twice. So I'm just going to rename this to props data. I'm going to go ahead and say props data equals all this stuff. Then we're going to say props data.session. And now I believe we should be good. And the last thing we need to change in here is Svelte 5 does things a little bit differently. So I'm actually going to, in my props, I'm also going to add in a new thing here called children. So children is the new replacement for slots. So I'm going to go down here. We're going to replace this and we're going to say @render. Whoops, I can't spell. And children. There we go. So now this will render out all of our child pages. We could add in a div up here, put something here, and then be like h2, be like hello from layout or something, just to show you how this works. So this is just the normal slot, just a little bit different, a little bit more explicit, and it's probably better. So now when we go to our localhost 5173, hello from layout will work. We get our welcome to Sveltekit page and everything is good. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and implement our sign in with GitHub. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to go into our the flows here on the docs. We're going to go down to GitHub and we're going to copy paste some more code. And we're going to run this with the server-side flow. So I'm going to go in here to the second method here, click on server, and we're going to go ahead and copy paste all of this. So I'm going to copy paste this. We're going to go back over to our project here. We're going to go into roots. We're going to add a new folder called auth. We're going to go ahead and add a new folder in here called login. I'm going to go ahead and add in a plus page.server.ts. We're going to go ahead and say export const actions is equal to this. We're going to say our default action is going to be async. We're going to go ahead and grab our locals. We're going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to paste in everything I had there. We're going to replace this Supabase with locals.supabase. I'm going to go ahead and we're not going to handle errors for this. It's fine. I'm going to replace this provider option with GitHub. I'm going to go ahead and change this redirect URL down here to http://localhost 5173/ we're just going to do the home page here. Then we're finally going to go down here and we're going to say redirect, add this import from Sveltekit. We need to update this to go ahead and have a 307 in here. And then we can go ahead and finally just do return success is false, because if we get to this point, it did not work. But at that point, we should be good. So now what this will do is this will initiate our server-side auth flow. We can go through and do all that stuff. And before we go ahead and do the client-side code, we first need to go ahead and add the callback. Because remember, whenever you do OAuth, we're not going to go deep into how this all really works, but really what you're doing is you're going to GitHub land, you create your OAuth flow, you get your token, you go to GitHub's site, and when you log in on GitHub's site, they send you back with a token. And that token basically validates like, hey, they signed in correctly. So we're going to go back over here. I'm going to go down here to this auth callback. So I'm just going to copy paste everything right here. We're going to go into our auth/callback here. We're going to go ahead and add plus server.ts. Just going to paste everything in here. And I think that should handle it. That should get what we need. Oh, wait, I forgot. We can also grab URL. So yeah, that'll give us everything we need in here. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm actually going to make one more change to our login here. I'm going to go back over here, and instead of just doing this, we're actually just going to go ahead and say we want to do here is we want to go up here. We're going to add in a URL here because we have access to the URL context. We're going to say url.host. I want to send you back to, oh no, sorry, not host.origin. So we're going to go ahead and just do the origin right here, send them back to the home page basically. And with all of that, we should be good to make our client side code. Now I want to make this look a little bit nicer so that it looks a little bit like a real app. So I'm going to go ahead and add in Tailwind and shadcn for Svelte. So I'm going to go ahead into the documentation for shadcn Svelte. It's my favorite UI library for Sveltekit. I'm going to go ahead in here. I'm going to copy paste the second command here. We're going to go ahead and select bun because that's the package manager we're using. Stop the server, paste this in here, let it run through and initialize our new Tailwind. Preconditions failed. Yes, we do wish to continue. Yes, no, we don't need topography. It'll install everything. Awesome. We're going to go ahead and run bun I. I'm going to go back down here. We don't need to change our path aliases. Now we want to go ahead and initialize shadcn Svelte. So I'm going to go ahead right here. I'm going to add in bun. I'm going to go ahead and paste this in here. I am using TypeScript. We'll just do default style. I prefer neutral. That'll work. That'll work. That'll work. That'll work. And now we have our shadcn initialized. I'm going to go back down in here, and now I'm going to go back to this site and want to add a couple components. So the first one we're going to go ahead and add is button. This one's really useful. I'm just going to go down here, say bun, paste that in here. We'll say yes. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to do, the next one I want to do is going to be label. So I'm going to go to label here. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Paste you in here. Yes, we want to install. I'm going to go ahead and do input. Go ahead and grab you. We're going to go ahead and paste this in here. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Then finally, we're going to go ahead and do card. This should be enough to make a semi-competent UI for this little example. So we're going to go ahead and add in this card. Yes, we want to install. Now, with all of that done, we're going to go ahead and do bun run dev once more. I'm going to go back to our website. It should look... Oh, yeah. So when you restart your server, I think it, like in the layout.svelte, it auto added in the slot. So we need to go ahead and close you up. We're going to go back to our layout.svelte. We go all the way down here, and it automatically added in the slot. We don't want that. We're just going to delete him there. Make sure, yep, it added our app.css. We open this back up. Yep, it'll look completely unstyled, but that's because we're now in Tailwind and it's all working. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go into our page.svelte. I'm going to go ahead and delete these here. We're going to import button here. So I'm going to import this button from component/button. We are going to say ref equals /auth/login. We're going to say login to the site. We're going to go back over to our home page here. Give it a moment to load. We're going to go ahead and log in to the site. Oh, so there's no page attached. So when you click it, it won't do anything. But if we go back over here now, and we go to auth and we go to login and we go to +page.svelte, we're going to go ahead in here and we're going to, let's make this look kind of nice. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a new card. I'm going to import this from component/card. We're going to add in card header. Grab that also from card. We're going to go ahead and say login to the site. We're going to go ahead down here into card content. And then we're just going to go ahead and add in a button here. We'll also wrap this in a form. We'll change that in a moment here. So we're going to delete this down here, paste that. We go ahead within this button. We're going to want to also import this here. We're going to want to say sign in with GitHub. We're going to want to go ahead and set the type of this button to be submit, because we want to submit the form because we're firing a form action here. Or actually, we don't even need to have action here. We just need to do method equals post. And now, with all of that nonsense hopefully done, I'm going to go ahead back into here. I'm going to go back over to our site. I'm going to go to login to site. Okay, so you'll notice actually here, I didn't even notice this, they changed this on the documentation. So if you go to the login to site and you go to auth/login, it just nothing will work. And that's actually because there's an auth guard on this now. So we go back into our hooks.server.ts, we'll go ahead and just, I'm going to close up this Supabase instance. And if you look down here, we have our auth guard here. So in here, basically what we're doing is we're just checking if they're logged in, and then if, like, basically having a bunch of private directories here. And I just don't want any of this. I don't typically find myself doing these guard functions that much. You can leave this in if you want to and set it up, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete this. We're just going to go ahead and remove the auth guard back here. I'll leave the sequence in, so if you want to add in more things in sequence, you can, but otherwise we don't really need that. So I'm going to delete this redirect. Now, if we go back over here and I go to log into site, oh, it's probably just not rebuilding. So actually what we need to do here is probably just go in here and just delete our Sveltekit file, because sometimes this happens in Svelte. This is one of the most annoying things about the framework, is every once in a while it just won't properly rebuild. So we're actually going to do bun I again, let it all reinstall, and then we're going to do bun run dev. We're going to open up our localhost instance here, and this really should work now, right? What the fuck? Okay, cool. There we go. Okay, so that fixed it. So yeah, so that was the problem. So basically what we were doing is, since we were just passing all of the props data into this effect, it was constantly rerunning the effect. So what we want to actually do in here is we just want to destructure these, grab Supabase and session from props data, pass these guys right in here to this, and then that should fix it. So that was a long way of saying, like, make sure that you change those two things so that you can properly get into your root. So now we can finally go over to log into the site. We will have this pretty ugly card. I haven't really done any styling to it. Now, if you try this right now, you'll actually notice we made one more mistake here. So when you hit sign in with GitHub, it'll give you the wrong thing here. What we actually want to do here is we want to redirect to be url.origin plus /auth/callback. We want it to go here. We want to go ahead and do this here. Sign in with OAuth. All that stuff should be good. Okay, yeah, awesome, finally. So now we go here, we log in. So one thing that you're going to notice actually is I kind of screwed this up. When I initially did this earlier, I was just thinking, oh yeah, we'll just do this within the form actions and stuff, but that kind of gets screwy with all the different HTTP verbs that get thrown in there. So I'm going to make this a lot easier, just make a little GET request here that will run the call, that will run the authentication flow. So we're going to go in here to the login directory. We're going to go ahead and add in a GitHub folder here. We're going to go ahead and add in a server.ts. We're going to go ahead and say export const get, and then this is going to be equal to an async file, to an async function. We're going to go ahead and say locals, and from locals, we're going to grab Supabase out of here. We're also going to grab the URL, and we're going to go ahead down here. We're going to say const data equals await Supabase .auth.sign in with OAuth. We're going to say our provider is GitHub, and we're going to say in our options, we're going to say redirect to, and then we're going to do url.origin and then auth/callback, and then we're going to go ahead and say if data.url redirect to the data.url. We don't need all of that it just popped up there. Delete this. Otherwise, we want to go ahead and just do a redirect to 307, and then we will do /auth/error. We haven't created that, and we'll just hope that we don't have any auth errors, but this is where you would go through and implement all that stuff. So now that I've finally done all that stuff, we're going to go back over to our project here. So we're going to go back in here. We're going to go to this page. Now we need to change this client side. So we're going to go to our page.svelte. I'm going to delete this form. I'm going to change this button to instead be a little, to have a href. We're going to set this to auth/login/GitHub. We're going to go ahead into our page.server. We're going to delete, actually we can just delete this. No, we'll leave this in here, but we'll just delete all of this flat out. We're just going to do this. Now, when we go back in here, we go to sign in with GitHub, it'll go through and it will log me in. I've already logged in with GitHub on this computer, so it didn't show GitHub, but if you're not, it will take you there and you can do this. So now, if we go back into our home page here, and I'm just going to go ahead and do inspect, we're actually going to do data.user. We're going to inspect the user object here. We're going to inspect element, go in here, and you can see we have an object right here that says we have an authenticated user. So just like that, we now have authentication working. So the last thing we're going to go ahead and do here, which should be pretty quick, I really hope, is going to be just implementing some basic CRUD logic, getting this to look a little bit nicer, adding in a couple auth checks, and then we'll go ahead and deploy it. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to go into my, where is it? Where do we want to start this? let's just do it on the home page. So we're gonna add in a big old if in here. So we're gonna go ahead and do a hashtag if data.user. So the user object is optional here, right? I believe data.user. Oh, come on. We're going to do else. We're going to close our if right here, and we're going to say div you are logged in. Whoops, I have these flips. I'm just going to flip these real quick. And now if we go back over here, it's going to say you are logged in. So we have this right here. So now that we are logged in, we're going to go ahead and actually add in some logic here. So let's go ahead and create a new card. Let's go ahead and we need to import this from our card component. We're going to say card content is going to be in here. We're going to go ahead and say, or we'll add card header. We're going to go ahead and say, manage your profile. In the 3 fields we're going to have in here, we're going to add in a div. We're going to add in a label here. So we're going to import that from our label here. We're going to say email. And then we're going to add in an input here. We'll just have this just be an input for right now. That's fine. We're going to just copy paste this and paste this. And we're going to do first name. We're going to do last name here. And with all of that, we're going to go ahead and add in one more div down here. We're going to add in a button. We're going to say update. We're going to say type equals submit. And we are going to go ahead and actually wrap all of this in here in a form. So we're going to go ahead and do this. We're going to go all the way down here. We're going to delete this guy down here. And now we have what we need. So this is all good. But the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and kind of change a couple things about the authentication to get it a little bit more production ready. So we're going to go ahead in here. We're going to go into our lib directory and let's go ahead and add in a new utility function. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new auth folder in here. I'm going to go ahead and call this index.ts. And now I'm going to go ahead and say export const get or create user profile, where this is going to be async. This is going to take in our locals object. We want to say app.locals, and we're just going to do this. And then the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to say if not locals.user, we're just going to go ahead and return null. The next thing we want to go ahead and do is we want to say const cur profile equals await db dot query dot profile table dot find first, and we're going to say where. We're going to do eq profile table dot id is equal to locals dot user dot id. So now we're going to say if current profile, we just want to return the profile, and otherwise we want to create a profile. So we're going to just go ahead and tab this in. Now we'll do const new profile equals await db dot insert into the profile table, where say our values are just going to be an object. Our ID will be locals.userid. And then for now, we're just going to leave our first name blank. We're going to leave our last name blank. But for our email, we want to use locals.user.email. And now this is potentially undefined, so we'll also give that an option to just be empty. So now that we've done all of this stuff, we're just going to go ahead and return the new user profile. We'll make this easier, and we'll just go ahead and just do this. And then finally, we'll go ahead and just do const and new profile equals await find first. Same query as above, and then we'll just return new profile. And we know that this has to not be undefined, so we will force this to be real. Or I guess if not new profile, there was a new error in creating that, so we want to actually make this a Sveltekit error. So we're going to delete all of this in here. So we're going to say error, and then we're going to go ahead and just say error is going to be a 500. Could not create the profile, and then otherwise we will just return the profile. That will be defined. So then here, this should return a promise of either a profile object or null. And this is super, super helpful for basically working as a guard function. So I'm going to go back over here into my roots here. So instead of grabbing profiles, we're actually going to say const user profile equals await get or create user profile, and we need to grab our locals here. We're going to pass our locals into here, and then we're just going to return user profile. I'm going to delete this, and then now within our page.svelte, I'm actually going to change this to be if data.user profile. This is a much more useful thing to work with here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Everything should be good here. So if we have a profile, we're going to fill this in. So what you're actually going to notice in here when we make that change is actually that the profile is now disappearing. So we now just have login to site, and the profile is going to be null for some reason. So what we want to go ahead and do here is we want to go into our, actually back into our get or create profile. We're going to go in here, and we actually need to change a little bit about how this works. So one of the things that's a little interesting about how we have this set up is we have this function up here called get safe session. So this get safe session is how we can get out our user and how we can get out our session. So in here, we don't actually have our user set to anything, and we don't actually have our session set to anything because we haven't called get safe session yet. So what we need to actually do in here is I'm going to go ahead up here and I'm going to say const session. Actually, we just need to get user. So we're going to say const user equals await locals.safe get session. So now down here, we're going to replace this locals.user. We're going to replace all of these. We're going to replace this guy. We're going to replace this guy, this guy, this guy. Replace all of these in here with that. And then with those fixes in place, now we go back here, we will have our profile incorrectly. You will see my profile in here. Everything is well and good. So now that all of these random little edge cases have been figured out, and I know that this is a lot, it's kind of chaos getting this set up. I will have this entire finished project links down below. Eventually this will probably be a template. We definitely need to do that. That's something that's been on my list forever, and I think we're finally making steps towards getting that done. So this will exist at some point. So we're going to go ahead down here. I'm going to go into my page.svelte here, and let's go ahead and actually make this work. Now, there are a lot of different ways we could do this, but I want to show off a lot of the progressive enhancement stuff to give you guys some more context on how to do that. This is not the most efficient way to actually implement this, but again, we're going to make it a little weird just for the sake of showing off some concepts. So first and foremost, we need to set up our state variables. I'm going to say let first name equals $state empty string, let last name, and we're going to say let email equals state. Now I'm going to go down here into my input, and I'm going to say bind value equals email. We're going to do the same thing in here. We're going to do bind value equals first name, and we are going to do bind value equals last name. Finally, so now that we've done that, we can go ahead and work with our state variables, but we want to populate these based on our data. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do $effect. So just populate these on mount, basically. I know I use effect more than I probably should, but whatever. It works. I'm going to go ahead and also destructure up here. I'm going to do const user profile equals data. Just grab this out here. We're going to go down here and also change this to just be user profile. I'm going to say if user profile. I'm going to go ahead and do first name equals profile name. Set all of these. Copilot knows what to do. And now if we go back into our page here, you'll see my email is populated with my real email. And first name and last name are empty because we don't have anything there. So now let's go ahead and make the backend server-side function to actually work with this. So I'm going to go into my page.server.ts. We're going to go ahead and do export const actions equals default async. We're going to need to grab in our request object, and we're need to go ahead and grab our locals object, I believe. Yes. Go ahead and do this. First and foremost, we want to go ahead and say const user profile equals await get or create user profile. We'll pass in locals here. If not user profile, we're just going to throw an error here. We're going to do a Sveltekit error. We're going to say 401, and then you need to be logged in. Now I'm going to use a package here that I really like that makes form data a lot easier to work with. We're going to go and do Zod form data. This is a really useful package, which I've found very lightweight, very simple, which we can go ahead in here and use this to kind of create a schema and then quickly safe parse our form data. Probably should make a utility function out of this eventually, but for now, this will work. We're gonna go back into our terminal. We're gonna do bun add zod form data and zod. We're gonna go ahead and just do bun run dev once again. I'm gonna go back in here and I'm going to say const schema equals zfd d. It doesn't seem, oh wait, does it get it? Yep. Dot form data, first name, which is going to be a string, a last name, and actually these aren't strings, these are actually going to be text fields, because instead of mapping to normal TypeScript types, it's going to map to form types. So we're going to grab these text objects, and then we're going to say const data comma error. We're going to say equals schema dot parse, and we're going to pass in request dot form data. So we're going to do schema dot save parse. We'll pull out our data from here. This data will be either here or not defined. We're going to go ahead and do if not data. I'm going to go ahead and throw another error in here. We're going to say 400 invalid form data. Then finally, we will now properly have our form data, and we can go ahead and do await db.update db grab u.update, and we're going to update the profile table. We're going to go ahead and set the first name, last name, and the email. Beautiful. And then we're going to do dot where eq profile table dot id is equal to the user profile dot id. And now with all of that out of the way, we can just return success is equal to true. And then now we need to go ahead and hook this up client side. So I'm going to go back down here to my client. And like I said, we're doing this kind of weird. We don't need to do all this progressive enhancement. We can just submit the form and have it work. But I want to get a little fancy here. So I'm going to go down here into my form action. We're going to add in a method equals post. We're going to delete this action right here. We're going to go ahead and do a use enhance directive here. Now we're going to get a little fancy with this. So we're going to say we're going to grab form data out of this. We're going to go ahead and do this. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to set all of our state variables in our form data. Because if you look right here, we don't have any names on these inputs, so they won't be properly bound here. And again, you can just give this like a name of what you want back there and have that work. But again, I'm just showing you the progressive enhancement. So we're going to do form data.set first name, last name, email. Then we're going to go ahead down here and we're going to do return, and we return a callback function here, which will happen. All of this up here happens before submit. All of this down here happens after submit. So I'm going to go ahead and say result. Then I'm going to say if result dot success dot type equals success. We're going to go ahead down here and say we're going to want to invalidate our home page, and we're going to want to add an alert updated. And then otherwise, else we want to go ahead and do alert error. So now with all of that nonsense out of the way, I think we should be able to update our profile. I don't know why that got imported here. Let's go back to our site here. I'm going to go ahead and refresh everything here. Go ahead and fill in my name. Go ahead and hit update. It'll say updated. Now I refresh the page, this will all be correct. And if I go back into my terminal here, we do Supabase status. We go into my studio URL. I open this up. I open up my table editor. I open up my profile. You can see we have a functional app. We can update this as much as we want. You can go back in here. We'll do bun run dev. Go ahead and refresh this here. We're going to go ahead and change this to my full name. Update this. Go back to this guy here, and it will be properly updated. So now we have the makings of a full app here. You can imagine how you could expand this to build something real. I think before we deploy, I want to go ahead and create a sign out button because I think that's just a good thing for you guys to see. I'm going to go ahead down here and add in a new button. It's going to be ref equals /auth /logout. I'm just going to say logout. We're going to go ahead in here to our auth directory. We're going to add a logout right here. We're going to add a plus server.ts. Do export const get. We're going to do, this is going to be async. We're going to go ahead and do this. We also want to grab our locals and specifically Supabase. And we just wanted to go ahead and do await supabase.auth.sign out. And then we want to redirect 307 to the home page. And just like that, we can go ahead and hit log out. We'll come back to our home page. It'll say we're not logged in. Go ahead, log into the site, sign in with GitHub. And now, just like that, we now have a functional app. So I know this has been a very long and kind of crazy tutorial, but let's get this in production and make it complete. I'm going to go into GitHub here. I'm going to go to my profile. I'm going to go ahead to my repos. I'm going to create a new repo. I'm going to call this Supabase Sveltekit 2024 tutorial. This will be the public one that will be available at the end of this. So a basic demo showing of Sveltekit plus Supabase and in 2024. This will probably change at some point, but for now, this is fine. So I'm going to leave all of this blank because I like an empty repo. Go ahead, create the repository. We're going to go ahead down here. The only command I need is this one. So I'm going to copy this right here. We go ahead in here and I'm going to do git init. We go ahead and do git add-a, git commit-m created project. We go ahead and paste that in here. We're going to go ahead and say, I already did everything right. Yep. And we're going to go ahead and say git push. Oh, yep. And we need to go ahead and actually do set upstream origin main. Now, if we go ahead and do this and refresh back here, zoom out to normal, we have our full little project. So this is all done and ready here. Now let's go ahead and deploy this. We're going to start the deployment process in Supabase because that's an easier place to do it. So we're going to go to Supabase. I'm going to go to my dashboard. I have a bunch of stuff in here. You can do this for free completely. I have to do it because I have to pay here because I have so many different projects using this for Insider Viz, for Weights AI, for a bunch of different stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project in we'll do it in this org. Do a micro instance. We will say Supabase Sveltekit tutorial. We're going to go ahead and generate a password here. This instance will be deleted by the time you see it, so it doesn't matter here. I'm going to do US East because I'm on the East Coast. Copy this password over here. I'm going to, in my .env, I like to just store it in here just to know, and just say prod pass equals this, because I want to keep record of that. Go ahead and create my new project. And once we've created this, we can go ahead and get ready to start doing the next thing. So I'm going to go up here to the URL, and I want to grab this piece right here. It'll look like a bunch of random letters and numbers. So I'm going to grab this right here. I'm going to go back into my terminal. I'm going to do Supabase base link -- project ref, and that's good. Then I'm going to paste in that. Okay, awesome. So finally, once you get the green light here, we're going to go back into our terminal. We're going to actually fire this command. I'm going to paste in my database password, grab that back from here, paste that in there. And now what we can do is we can do Supabase db push. I'm going to go ahead and push. I'm going to say yes. And now that we've done this, I'm going to go back over to my table editor, and we have our profile table in production. So let's go ahead back to our Git repo here. So I'm going to go back to the GitHub. We have this guy right here, and now we're going to go ahead and deploy this web app. You can deploy this wherever you want. I'm going to do it on Vercel because that's the easiest place to do it. So we're going to go to Vercel. I'm going to go to my profile here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. I'm going to import this from the Sveltekit 2024 tutorial. We're going to go ahead and the framework preset should be Sveltekit, I believe. Root directories here. The output directory, this is all correct. Big ones here are going to be the environment variables. So if you remember over here, we have a couple different things. We have our database URL, public Supabase URL, Supabase anon key, and these two. We don't actually need to include these two in our Vercel project. We just need these. So the first one I'm going to get is going to be the database URL. We're going to go back into the project. We're going to go down into project settings. We're going to go into database. I'm going to copy this URI right here. I'm going to jump back over here, paste it in, and then we need to change the your password field right here we need to change this to be the prod pass. So we're going to paste prod pass in here. We're going to add that in. Next thing we're going to go ahead and grab is going to be our API info. So my project URL is going to be this. So I'm going to say, what did I call it? It's public Supabase URL. It's going to be this. And then we're going to say our anon key. We're just going to copy paste that in here. Jump back here, copy this anon key into our project, add that in, and that's everything we need. So we should be able to go in here now and just hit deploy. Oh God, why is it? It does this every once in a while. I've seen this problem before. Yeah, every once in a while Vercel does that. I don't really know why they do that, but they do that sometimes. So we're just going to go ahead into the package.json. I'm going to set this to be 0.2. We're going to go ahead and do git add-a, git commit-mv, and then we're just going to push this up. And then if you get this error, this is usually how you fix it. We're going to refresh it here. We're going to check on our deployments, and we'll get our first production deployment. And again, I don't know why it does that sometimes. Sometimes you'll just get that weird git error. It should have fired initially, but if it didn't, just do this. So we'll give it a second here. It needs to go ahead and run a bunch of stuff. It'll run bun install, run all of our Vite build stuff, basic Sveltekit stuff here. And in a moment, we should have a project. And once we have that project, we need to do the last step, which is going to be setting up our new GitHub instance. So I'm actually going to go back to GitHub and get that started. So we're going to go back into GitHub. I'm going to go back into my settings. I'm going to go down here into my developer settings. I'm going to go into OAuth apps. We're going to create yet another one. We're going to call this Supabase tutorial live. We're going to set the homepage URL to, we don't know what that will be yet, but the callback URL. We're going to jump back to our Supabase console here, jump back to dashboard, jump into Supabase Sveltekit tutorial, jump into project settings, and actually we're going to jump into authentication here. We're going to go into providers. We're going to go down here into email, and we're going to disable it because I don't want email. We're going to save that. We're going to go down here into GitHub. We're going to go ahead and enable it. We're going to copy this callback URL, jump back to GitHub, paste it in here. We're going to jump over to Vercel. We should have our new URL here. So we view, yep, this is working correctly. Open this in full screen. I'm going to grab this URL here. We're going to jump all the way back to our GitHub here, paste that URL in. We're going to register our application. I'm going to copy my client secret. We are going to paste that in here, and we're going to grab our client secret here, generate it, copy. We're going to paste it. We're going to save it. I don't want to autofill that. And just like that, we should now have a GitHub provider enabled here. And with all of that in place, hopefully, if we go back to our live little GitHub site, I hit login to site, I go to sign in with GitHub. I want to authorize this, yes. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Oh, one more thing I forgot to do here. We want to go back into our, here to our tutorial app thing. We want to grab our URL here. We want to go back into our Supabase console. We'll go into our Supabase console, into authentication, into providers, actually into URL configuration. We want to paste in our URL, get rid of the slash, save it. And now, hopefully, we can go back into our project, log into the site, sign in with GitHub, and now we are logged in and we have our app. I'm going to go ahead and fill in my name. Update this. Updated. We're going to log out. I'm going to go back into my Supabase console, into my table editor, view my profiles, and it's working. So just like that, we have built a full stack Sveltekit Supabase production application in 2024. I know that this was kind of a crazy tutorial and we went through a lot of stuff. Like I said, link down below will be the full source code for this, that repo I just published. You can go through and check everything. If you guys have any ideas on how to improve this and update this, definitely leave them down below. Would love to hear from you guys. And yeah, I know this has been chaos, but if you enjoyed, make sure you like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.